Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. It was the most lopsided defeat in Tom Brady's career, the 35-point margin. Everything went right from New Orleans. From opening the game, forcing a 3-and-out, scoring on the opening possession. In fact, Tampa's first 4 possessions all ended in a 3-and-out, and the 5th possession was the interception by David Onyemata. And when you get a fat guy interception, you know things are going your way. As a matter of fact, just about the only thing that didn't go the Saints' way was Jared Cook, who fumbled the ball at the 1. Believe it or not, that score could have been worse. Cook fumbled the ball at the 1. He dropped a 3rd down pass and whiffed on a block on Shaq Barrett, which, I mean, we're really expecting a tight end to be able to block Shaq Barrett. But I digress. Forced the fumble on Drew Brees, but that led to the Saints coming up with a goal line stand at the start of the 3rd quarter, which was just sensational. You know, we throughout the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era, we have seen games like this. You know, Alvin Kamara after the game last night called it poetry in motion, you know, when they get rolling like that. And he's right. That's a very appropriate way to describe it. And when games like that happen, we can call them to mind like that. How many times do we talk about, even though it was 16 or 14 years ago, the 2006 game on Sunday Night Football against Dallas? The day when Mike Carney scored 3 touchdowns. You know, that 42-17 game. 2009, a lot of people have referenced the Saints' win over the Patriots on Monday Night Football in 2009. That was a 38-17 game in the Dome where they pulled Tom Brady late in that game. New England did. In 2011, when Drew Brees broke Dan Marino's single-season passing record, everything worked for the Saints that day in a 45-16 rout of Atlanta. When those games have happened in the Peyton Brees era, they're a beautiful thing to watch. And when that machine is churning with that efficiency, there's nothing you can do to slow it down because everything Peyton calls works and everything the Saints execute is to perfection. And that's what it looked like last night. And it was at an absolutely perfect time for this team. A team that had gotten to 5-2 despite a lot of injuries, now healthy, on the road against a division rival who kind of has been the trendy pick in the NFC, but that game realigned a lot of perception for the conferences, not just the division, these two teams, but the conference as a whole, which I want to delve into. But you know, a lot of people are going to focus on the offense last night, and I understand why. I mean, Drew Brees was sensational. He threw 4 touchdown passes. He reclaimed the career touchdown passing lead from Tom Brady. Now is a 3-touchdown advantage on him. So for a lot of reasons, I do understand. Taysom Hill was magnificent. The return of Michael Thomas, who had 5 receptions in the ball game for 51 yards. Taysom Hill was his most effective and efficient self, was actually the Saints' leading rusher. He caught a pass. He was 2 for 2 throwing the football. Even made a tackle on special teams. Everything worked. But for me, for this team, the bigger takeaway was the defense. I don't expect New Orleans to play offensive football the way they did on Sunday night every game heretofore. I don't expect New Orleans to put up 420 yards and 38 points every week. That's not a realistic expectation every week in the NFL. It's not realistic to average 6 yards a play in the NFL. We know this offense can be very good and consistent and championship caliber. I don't think anyone doubted that at all. The bigger surprise for this team so far had been the defensive inefficiency. It had been considering how good they really were after week 2 of 2017 through 18 and 19 being among the best defenses in the NFL, and last year being one of only 3 teams with 50 or more sacks. And we're talking about Marshawn Lattimore being one of the best defensive backs in football, Demario Davis, who was an all-pro a year ago, Cam Jordan with 15 and a half sacks a year ago, and it just hadn't come together yet. You know, You needed to survive a game in Detroit. You give up 37 to the Packers. You give up 34 on the road to Las Vegas. You can't stop Darren Waller. And you look through the way the season transpired, and it's like, man, what happened? But you've started to see glimpses, right? When you had to have it late in the game against Carolina, you got the big sack. You had to have it in overtime against Chicago. You get 2 sacks on 3 plays in overtime. You end up winning that game. And then last night was just a woodshed beating. Last night, I mean, you shut out New England or Tampa Bay, but for an embarrassing field goal just to avoid the shutout in the fourth quarter. You intercept Tom Brady 3 times. You come up with a goal line stand that was just perfection. 4 plays. Run defense with Demario Davis. Pass defense from Demario Davis, wiping a ball away from Gronk. Malcolm Jenkins actually played his best game as a Saint. And then twice you had Marshawn Lattimore in that goal line stand come up with plays against Mike Evans. It was just perfect. Tampa rushed the ball 5 times for 8 yards. With Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, they rushed the ball 5 times for 8 yards. Let me say that again. With Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, Tampa Bay rushed the ball 5 times for 8 yards. The 5th was a kneel down, by the way. First 4 possessions, 3 and out. Interception on the second play, the 5th possession. Just everything worked defensively. And the reason Sunday night was so massively critical is because it did, in many respects, reshuffle the order and the perception of the order in the NFC. Coming into last night, it was Green Bay and Seattle, and then a lot of people wondering if Tampa had really earned the right to that spot. A couple of sluggish performances, obviously against Chicago, and then on Monday Night Football last week against the Giants. Some, yours truly included, thought maybe that's a look-ahead spot for Tampa, keeping an eye on the Saints on Sunday Night Football. You can't say that anymore. This is back-to-back-to-back bad performances now by Tampa, and it's fair to wonder, have teams figured them out a little bit, figured out this offense a little bit? Perhaps that's part of what's happening right now for Tampa Bay. When you look at Green Bay, it's undeniable that Green Bay is a team that is trending downward. I know they beat San Francisco, but that was a very undermanned San Francisco team. And then you look at Seattle. Seattle cannot get a stop. Like with that defense, Seattle reminds me a lot of like the 2010 Saints. You still had a really good offense, but you had no defense of which to speak, and that ultimately was going to be your undoing. That's ultimately going to be this Seattle team's undoing as well. So you look around and you go, well, if Tampa's next and the Saints just bludgeon Tampa, are the Saints the next best team? Now listen, I was also the guy last week right here saying, because I liked Tampa in this game for a lot of reasons we laid out. Although when I saw everybody on Sunday Night Football pick the Bucs, I tweeted, give me the Saints. Because in the NFL, nothing should ever be unanimous like that in the NFL. With a 3-point spread, nothing should have been unanimous the way it was. And that's generally when you see Sean Payton, Drew Brees get that extra fire in the belly, the chip on the shoulder, and games tend to go the way they did last night. I digress. This right now, when you look at how things shape up, and I talked about it last week, you're talking about a situation in the NFL where you already know only one team is getting a bye, and home field is basically non-existent, especially if we go into a playoff bubble of sorts. So last week, if I'm going to be consistent, was saying, I don't mind if the Saints lose this game, just win the one in January. So similarly, you got to flip it on its head and say, if the playoffs go into a bubble and there is no home field, seeding is somewhat irrelevant. But if you're New Orleans, knowing how much you can own this team, knowing how much you do own this team, is a massive confidence boost in how you match up across the board in the NFC right now. Great win for New Orleans. I don't think there's any other way around it. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.